everyone, and welcome to today's Shocktober episode for 2020 on the Shelved Film Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Meyer. So today we're talking about a movie that I'm conflicted on. I'm talking about the movie Relic. It's a 2020 horror film. The synopsis is a daughter, mother, and grandmother are haunted by a manifestation of dementia that consumes their family's home. So the trailer for this movie really grabbed me, and I was seeing some super positive reviews on it. It's one of these slow burn horror films, and I will, just to kind of get it out of the way, I will say I did enjoy the movie, but I just thought I was going to end up enjoying it more than I actually did. It's a really good movie. It's mostly English and Irish cast, I believe, or at least according to the accents in the movie. There's really only 3 people in the movie. There's a couple small roles, but it's mostly the mother, daughter, and grandmother. So kind of the setup of the film is the grandmother goes missing. So the mother and the daughter show up at the house to try to, find the grandmother. It's made very clear in the beginning that she has dementia. And so that everybody just assumes that she's wandered off or something, as, people with dementia might do. And, so they come by the house and they're hanging out, they're checking it out, and they're trying to find, sorry about that. They're trying to find her and see where she is. And, eventually she ends up showing up, but something is different about her. She doesn't know where she's been. And she's just acting super odd, as, it's a horror film. So a big chunk of the film is the debate between the mother and the daughter of putting her in a home. The mother wants to put her in a home, and the daughter very much does not. She doesn't think it's right. And she even is kind of offering to stay with the grandmother to take care of her and stuff. It's kind of hard to talk at length about this movie because honestly, not a ton of stuff happens. It is literally the definition of a slow burn movie. It's a good example of creating tension just through the camera work and, environmental work and stuff. Slowly as the movie progresses, you're learning a little more about the family and about a traumatic event when the mother was young and relating to the father and stuff. But it's a lot of implied actions, and the movie's not giving up everything on a silver platter, which is good. It's good. It's fine. I don't need everything fucking spoon fed to me on a plate. What I did kind of like about this movie, and there are 2 movies that came out this year. I'm pretty sure the other one was this year. 2 horror films that borrowed something from the only horror novel I've ever read, I think, aside from when I was a kid and I would read Goosebumps and stuff like that. But, and this may go into a little bit of spoiler. I'm not really going to spoil the movie. I will just say the ending is very metaphorical. Luckily I had I guess not luckily, because I guess I would have rather had this afterwards, but some bits of it were spoiled for me going in, so I knew kind of the metaphorical nature of the ending of the movie, and that kind of helped me understand what was going on. But I could definitely see it turning off some people. But the end of the movie borrows something from a horror novel that I really like called House of Leaves. It's one of the only horror books I've read, and it's the only time where I've ever been reading a book and understood how a book could scare somebody, because I definitely would make fun of how's a book going to be scary and blah, blah, blah. But then one night I'm reading this book, and a main factor of House of Leaves is the evilness in the book is a house, and is a house with shifting. So I guess a little discussion about what I liked about this movie. I have to talk about the book a little bit. So in House of Leaves, it's like a book told from three perspectives, but one of the main perspective is about it's like a what's the word? Not report, but it's like fuck it. I can't think of the word. So a report. It's a transcript of like a documentary about this guy who moved into a house with his family, and just one day in the middle of the house they find a doorway that wasn't there before, and when you open it, it's like a 5.5 minute long dark hallway that extends like where the outside of the house should be. Like, you would go on the outside of the house and there would be nothing there, but on the inside there's a doorway leading to a long hallway. And then eventually they explore this hallway, which then leads to a giant shifting labyrinth. And this movie kind of does something similar, where a character gets lost in part of the house that becomes a little labyrinthian. And that like super fascinated me. It was kind of the thing, because like, oh, like nobody's ever going to make a House of Leaves movie, but that sounds super interesting. And I wanted to see that. And there was another movie that came out with Kevin Bacon. It was like a Blumhouse movie where they borrow an element, just like a single line. Honestly, it's a very small part of the movie, but there's like a mention of like, hey, the inside of the house is bigger than the outside, and that's impossible. And that, like, I don't know, maybe it was just a coincidence, but these two things feel very much like House of Leaves. And that kind of made me excited, because I really like that book, and to see some of that in a movie form was kind of interesting. But yeah, Relic, it has some super creepy imagery at the end. I'm not going to spoil what happens. I will just say, like, there is like a creature in the movie, and it looks super crazy and intimidating, and just kind of how it all plays out is a little spooky. But I did find myself being a little bored with the film, and I didn't really expect that to happen. That kind of sucked, but the movie itself is good. But I, like, when I was hearing about this movie and hearing kind of the reactions to it, I was expecting like, oh, this is going to be like a 4 out of 5 or even a 5 out of 5. And for me, it kind of ended up just being like a 3 out of 5. Like, it's good. It's, you know, worth watching, but it just didn't blow me away. And it wasn't like some revolutionary horror film, but it has some really good imagery. It's very well directed. The performances are all great, but other than that, I kind of just don't have a lot more to say about it. But yeah, at least worth checking out, and especially for like 2020, like definitely, while the list of movies that have come out this year is very small and getting smaller by the minute, it is definitely one of the better movies of the year. It is currently in my top 10, although that's almost by default, because my top 10 of the year so far only has 9 movies. So, and there's only been like 1 or 2 movies I saw this year that I did not put on the list. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's Shocktober episode. Check out Relic. It's worth watching. Also, check out our social medias. You can find me at Shelf Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find me on the Patreon. You can join our one Patreon producer, Patrick, at patreon.com/shelved. You can also find our merch at our Below the Collar store. You can find the links to our merch store in all of our social media. I have a new shirt design up, which is like a Star Wars inspired design. It's maybe one of the coolest things that my name is on. Really enjoy that. And shout out to Dave Stankin for helping me get that art, all worked out. So be sure to check back tomorrow for our next episode of Shocktober.